I'm Laura, I'm an alcoholic. I must just say I will probably cry because I'm quite emotional today, which is nothing new. For any of you that do know me, I am a very sensitive person. I think that's one of the things that when I first came into these rooms stood out for me, was how through recovery people were able to not just feel their feelings but own them as well, and just be in whatever that they were feeling. And I love that because my whole life I felt as though I had to hold back, change, alter, how I was actually feeling, whether it was rational or irrational. I never felt as though I was allowed to feel what I'm feeling. And today, or over this period of time, so I celebrated 13 years on the 27th of November, and it's been quite a big thing for me on an internal level because, that's an entire teenager. That's a very long time. And when I got clean, I didn't know if I could get through the first 8 hours. I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't do it anymore. I don't like thinking about what I'm going to share because then I get obsessive and I try to control it. So whatever's going to come out is going to come out. And somebody just said outside now, the journey. And I think that is exactly what I'm going to share on, is my journey in recovery. Because what got me here, barring the details, is exactly what got most people here. And that was pain, isolation, self-destruction, lack of self-worth, blame, and just a lot of dark emptiness. I listen to shares, and some of them are incredibly different to my story, but that underlying hopelessness is the same. I'll never forget my first meeting, as fucked as I was. Excuse me, I do swear as well, sorry, a lot. But I remember my very first meeting, and again, it was so weird. And back then, there were very few young people. I look around this room and I see a lot of young people, and it's awesome. My first meeting, I was about 16 or so, and there weren't any young people. I was sitting in an AA meeting, in a treatment center after an attempted suicide, and I just remember there was this feeling of oneness, this feeling of unity, and people were laughing, and I was like, they're drunk, they're lying. But there was hope. There was something in that meeting that brought me back. And I didn't get it right for a few years. And the faces changed and the meetings changed. But that feeling was always there, regardless of what headspace I was in. That feeling was always here. I've never been turned away from a meeting. I've never been shunned, and that was something also very, very foreign to me. Just a tiny bit on my journey that got me to here. My story was not one of these what's it called? Jack and Hyde, what?
Jekyll and Hyde.
That one. I started my journey at a very, very young age, and it was one of fuck it. This is what I could do this. I could rebel and I could do this. And I flipped that fucking switch, and that's how I spent my years of active addiction. There was no pretending or trying or anything like that. I just went balls to the walls, and I'm grateful for it because it got me to my knees a lot faster than it could have. My father passed away to this disease at the age of 50, and I was in recovery already when he passed away, and he never got it. On the 27th of November 2008, which is the morning I cleaned up, I was homeless. My family hadn't spoken to me in ages. I was on a very physically dependent substance that I was using intravenously, and I was disgusting. I was all those defects through and through. But most of all, I was so incredibly lost. But because I'd found these rooms before, there was a direction. So I couldn't just sit there and say, well, fuck it, you know. I couldn't do that anymore. And I remember that morning I sat, before I made the most important and life-changing phone call of my life, and I sat there and God said to me, or the universe or whatever it was, said to me, this is not the life I had planned for you. You know what to do, pick up the phone and make that phone call. And I phoned and I said, I'm done. I'm done now. The thought of the hustle, the thought of anything, I couldn't do it. Obviously, like I said, I was homeless and my family didn't speak to me. So the only option was for them to sponsor me. They gave me a call back and they said, right, there were about 5 people that did an incredible 12-step on me. And they said, right, we're going to sponsor your treatment. But we need to see the willingness. We know your desperation. We've seen you at meetings. We see your desperation, but we need to see your willingness. So if you don't pick up from now until we can get you a bed, I mean, it was the end of the year, treatment was full. They weren't taking in any new patients till the January, and they knew I was going to die. If you can show us the willingness and you don't pick up from now until we get you in, we'll pay for your treatment. And that was my first real lesson in recovery of handing it over. Handing it over with no control and no idea of what the outcome was going to be, whether they even would be able to get me a bed. I didn't know if it was going to be that afternoon, the next day. It turned out to be 11 days later. 11 days later, they phoned me. And in those 11 days, I bounced from one person's house to another person's house in my car when I couldn't go anywhere. And I think I did about 19 meetings in those 11 days, clucking like a chicken. Cold turkey, no detox medication. And it was a mind fuck, because when I got the phone call on the 11 days later and they said, right, we've got a bed for you, my addict was like, well, you don't need to go, you're clean now, you've gone through the worst of your withdrawal, you don't need to go to treatment, you're okay. But thank God I was that beaten that I didn't listen to that and I went, because that was when it started, that was when the healing started. And then this is now my journey, because it's still going on. I'm still healing, I'm still recovering. Geordie said to me this morning, he said, oh, you look so recovered. And I said, no, I don't. I'm recovering, because I'm still recovering. I got into treatment on grace. I didn't pay for it. I didn't feel as though I'd worked for it. I didn't feel as though I deserved it. When I phoned my family and said to them, I'm going into treatment, they were like, oh, like again, okay. Like, how's she managed to hustle this one right, And I think I was about 3 weeks in, 2.5, 3 weeks in, and my counsellor pulled me aside and said, right, your time's almost up, what's your next plan? Because you haven't even started working on yourself. You're here, but you're here self-piteous and feeling sorry for yourself and crying while you're on fucking coffee station and just really ungrateful. And I completely broke down, because I was like, okay, well, what am I doing now? I have nowhere to go. I've got nothing. What am I doing when I leave here? And she said to me, fucking break. Like, break. This is the place to do it. Break now. While there are people that can hold you. Because once you're out there, you're fucked. You're on your own. You can use the tools, but this is the place, the perfect place to break. And I did that, and they saw my willingness. I think for the first time in my life, I stood in front of the mirror and accepted that I was fucked, like proper, and that if I didn't do something now, I was going to die. And then miracles just started happening. The moment I made the choice to actually work on myself and look at myself and stop blaming. Yeah, I mean, I remember my excuse was, how can I be grateful for something I don't deserve? As if that's not the most self-piteous thing ever. And things just started happening. The promises. Can I do something? Can you read the promises again to us, please? Sorry. But we never listen to them. I never listen to them.
If we are painstakingly about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we get gone, we will see how experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And these extravagant promises,
We think not.
they are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize in our life.
Thank you. Like that for me seemed like the most impossible thing. Never mind that one day I would have 2 beautiful children and that I would be sitting here 13 years with a lot of experience behind me, a divorce. Okay, I got married in recovery, I got divorced in recovery, I've changed careers, I've built careers, I've lived overseas, I've traveled, I'm raising an incredibly beautiful, strong boy and a daughter with special needs. Like, life is hectic. But every single one of those promises has at some point been a reality for me. Do they stay? No. Are they fleeting? Yes. They're not all at the same time, except when I do have these huge moments of serenity. But those promises for me are what keep me here. They're what keep me here. 13 years ago, I wanted to die. I wanted to die, but I didn't even have the fucking guts to get it right. Or I couldn't get it right, because I felt as though I was such a failure. And today, I have a very full, diverse, amazing life. I've lost people, things, jobs, a marriage, all in recovery, and not once was the thought of let me pick up, that'll make it better. That obsession for me was removed very quickly, thank God, very quickly. There have been times where I felt absolutely desperate and alone and suicidal and I don't want to do this life thing anymore. That there has been. But not let me pick up. I can say this with full confidence today that I will put a gun to my head before I'll pick up again. Today, in this moment. And it's been like that for 13 years, so hopefully it'll be like that tomorrow. One of the things that always stuck with me, one of my first sponsors always said to me was, your recovery is only as strong as you work it today. And I know that for a fact, because when I don't work my program, none of that is true for me. None of it. When I do work my program, I'm here. And I'd like to think that I'm quite a happy person for the most part. Whether it's still denial, I don't know, or I live in a state of blasé about like my issues or what, but it keeps me clean. It keeps me clean and it keeps me sober, because the reality of this disease is that we die if we don't surrender. I am going to keep it short and sweet and end it there, because there is just so much that I could share. But if there's one thing that I know to be true, is that there is nothing bigger or nothing so big that life can throw at me that I can't get through without the help of this program, without my higher power, and without the fellowship. The reaching out and the doing the next right thing, that's a bit more tricky. But yeah, to quote our sister fellowship, sorry, I know we're not supposed to do that, like we do recover. We do. I have a relationship with my mother today, which I never thought I would. My mom is staying with me, and I haven't killed her. She's staying with me for the whole of December, my God. And our relationship is very, very difficult. It's better, but only because I have to practice and work my program much harder when she's around. But she's not dead. She's there, and she's watching my daughter. And that's amazing. I don't have a relationship with my sister, but that's a choice that I've had to make, a very difficult choice I've had to make in recovery, because she's not healthy for me. She's not a healthy choice for me to have in my life, and that was really hard because I want a relationship with her. But it is what it is. I have an amazing job that I love. And it's not the first job I've had in recovery. I've lost a lot of jobs. I've had to walk out on a lot of jobs. And a lot of jobs have just not been right for me. I've people pleased, and I'm like, oh no, okay, this is actually not right. My son is a top academic student, and he's just my absolute courage and my whole world. And then just to share on what is going on for me currently, my daughter, who has special needs, some of you have known her for years, has just been accepted into grade R at a special needs school, which is the most incredible thing in my world right now, because there have been hours spent working on her development. There have been tears cried, handing it over to God, but also putting in the action of helping her as much as I can, with accepting that it may never be. And she's this incredible thing is happening for her. And it's like all that hard work is worth it. It's like her little journey and where she's at right now is like recovery. For me, it's like a personified lesson in recovery, that the more you put in and continually doing it, it becomes something. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And I'm incredibly grateful for my life right now. I had a hard 2 years. Lockdown was tricky for me. But it brought me back to a place where I had to sit on my own, and the only thing I could draw strength from was my higher power. And all these amazing things, again, are coming. And I'm in a very, very grateful place right now. Very grateful. So yeah, I'm going to end there, like I said, short and sweet. If anybody got anything today, I'm going to quote one of the sayings that used to irritate the shit out of me. But don't give up until the miracle happens, because they do. And the promises do come true. Every single one of them. Like this program it will give you, well, it gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams. A full, real one, not a fake one that I've made up in my head.
or